Hark, what's that I hear? It is the sound of the Jimquisition Awards coming over the horizon, because they're about to begin now. No, wait, now! Yes, it's that time of the year again, the Jimquisition Awards, the only awards worth paying attention to. No, we're not sponsored by the Schick Hydrobot, but we've got heart and gusto and no corporate sponsorship at all to get in the way of things. Isn't that right, the cornflake homunculus? Okay, that's enough of the prattle. It's time to get on with the awards because we've got some prestigious honours to give out. So let's kick off with our first award of the evening. Although this goes up technically in the morning. This first award goes to Dark Souls 3. Quality game releases have been pretty generously spread throughout the year, and there were many viable award contenders. So many, in fact, that I didn't think a Souls game, an obvious nominee, would actually get a look in this year, being the third entry of the Dark Souls series, and coming so soon after the magnificent Bloodborne. However, when I think back to the amount of non-work time I've spent with games this year, I cannot deny that Dark Souls 3 dominated my attention. Dark Souls 3 is a game I played through multiple times, something I rarely have the schedule for, to the point where I may be more familiar with its world than I am with any Souls game to date. As the supposed swan song for the Dark Souls branch of the series, From Software did a wonderful job in celebrating the game's formidable legacy without getting too self-indulgent, though it does use the original game's lore as a crutch in some points. It augments the traditional Dark Souls structure with a little added speed inspired by Bloodborne, giving combat a more aggressive edge without sacrificing the player's need to be defensive and cautious. The enemies are freakier than ever, and the bleak ruins of Lothric continue to demonstrate just how good From is at creating something both desolate and beautiful. While not the prettiest game on the market from a technical standpoint, the devil is in the details, and Dark Souls 3's environments are so rich in this area that they always look gorgeous, in a dishevelled, nightmarish way. There's an argument to be made for Dark Souls 3 not doing much to change the formula, and that's true. But when you've got a formula this good, and no other game, no matter how desperate, has been able to accurately copy it, you're not having to do too much to change. At least for right now, From Software is still spinning gold from a singular thread, and it crafted a gripping, haunting action RPG with Dark Souls 3. Just, screw that one boss. You know the one. I just don't think it's fair how his attacks do that much damage, and that's before you even kill the Great work, Jim. Back to the studio with Jim. Hi, it's Jim. Time for the next award. The second Jimquisition Award of 2016 goes to A Pony Island. Pony Island is a game I took great pains to mentally carry with me from January to December because I knew it would be easily forgotten so long after its launch, but that it absolutely deserved consideration for end-of-year honorifics. In the almost entire year since Pony Island debuted, my stance on the game's wonderful accomplishments has not changed. It was the first game of the year that became an award contender for me, and it remained so through winter, spring, summer, autumn, and right back round to winter. Not that we get any of those seasons where I live, it's a week of winter and then the rest of it's summer. Thank you, Phil Bryant, you human fart. So Pony Island, it's ostensibly a little endless runner game about a cute pony that you make jump over things. It's got an ancient arcade aesthetic and even takes place within a better rendered arcade machine. Beyond these minimalist charms, however, there's a deep and far more bizarre game waiting to reveal itself. Pony Island is a game that doesn't so much break the fourth wall as constantly drill glory holes into it. A game that starts out about a silly little pony, but soon turns into a battle against Satan himself. The fact fact that isn't a plot twist should tell you exactly how deep the rabbit hole goes with Pony Island. Yeah, it's actually not a secret that the real premise of Pony Island is that it was designed by the friggin' devil, a nefarious yet frustrated programmer who is attempting to steal the player's soul via a blasphemous arcade machine. The actual twists and turns taken with the game's spin-off from that initial spark. Pony Island constantly plays with video games as a medium to create unique puzzles and mischievously self-aware scenarios. One early puzzle involves navigating to the options menu and fixing the start command because the option to start the game got broken. Obviously. Familiar interfaces and tropes are consistently undermined or subverted to surprise the audience and craft clever little roadblocks. It's a concept that could have gone horribly wrong and made developer Daniel Mullins look like a tactless smug git who was just showing off and being self-referential for the sake of it. In the hands of a lesser developer, that's exactly how Pony Island would come off. Self-satisfied, smarmy, and nowhere near as clever as it thinks it is. But the game we have really is as clever as it thinks it is, and it uses a disarming sense of innocent humour to make its disruptive behaviour more endearing than obnoxious. It's too damn brilliant, funny, and sometimes creepy to come off as insulting, which is an achievement in and of itself, given how condescending the whole game could look. Aside from a handful of slow moments where some puzzles become overly familiar, Pony Island is a game that regularly switches gears or attempts some new stunt with consistent success. It's a genre-straddling piss-take of video games that mocks gently and lovingly, presented fantastically, and deserving to be counted among the likes of Undertale and the Stanley Parable when the subject of games about games comes up. Pony Island is bloody genius. Some might call it the most innovative shooter they've played in years, but that is because the game tells them to tell their friends that exact phrase. The third Jimquisition Award 2016 goes to Superhot. Superhot, like Pony Island, is a game with a subversive premise that starts out one way but ends up another. Beyond that, its one unifying mechanic is fucking fantastic. Many of you will have heard about Superhot because even though it's not the biggest game out there, it was undoubtedly one of this year's biggest head-turners, at least for a brief period of time. It's a first-person shooter with a huge twist. Time moves when you do. If you stand on the spot, everyone around you is frozen. As you move in any direction, the faceless antagonists will attempt to kill you, which they're capable of doing within a single shot. Being so vulnerable, you can't just run and gun. You have to methodically survey the surroundings and work out the best way of taking down opponents while avoiding their gunfire and melee strikes. Remember their Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock films? It's a bit like those scenes where he thinks so fast it's like time is frozen, except it's actually frozen here, so you can pull off super cool moves at your leisure and then watch them all impressive like once it's over. Lots of punching people in the face and grabbing their guns in mid-air, like stuff you can't do in real time, but looks fantastic once it's all put together. Superhot provides just enough content in its campaign to present interesting takes on its central premise without overstaying its welcome, and there's lots of optional content beyond that. Married to all that is an interesting meta-plot and an artistic direction I like. Some might find the lack of intricate detail and angle-tastic character models to be threadbare, but I think they're essential in how clearly communicative they are. You know exactly what is what thanks to a strong, restrictive colour scheme and the use of definitive shapes. It's one of the best examples of how a single idea can be iterated upon to create dozens of clever scenarios. It tries a bit too hard to be clever with its writing, but the core of the game is almost perfect in its purity, with all manner of twists and stunts to be discovered through experimentation. The buzz around Superhot never seemed to endure or explode beyond what it got, which might lead one to believe it was a flash in the pan and not worthy of attention these days. It absolutely is, and if you've never checked it out, I highly recommend it. I mean, why wouldn't I recommend it? It just won a Jimquisition Award after all, and I hear they're very prestigious. I fucking wish. Our fourth Jimquisition Award goes to a game that is probably going to be on a lot of Game of the Year lists, at least as a nominee, if not a winner. It is 2016's very own Doom. From the moment the shotgun cocks just in time with that classic introductory music, you know exactly what Doom has to offer the world, and that offering is pleasing as all fuck. Doom is an unapologetically brutal throwback, a game concerned primarily with one thing: killing as many demons as bloody possible. Armed with a classic assortment of shotguns, plasma guns, chain guns, and rocket launchers, the Doom Marine, aka the Doom Slayer, is back where he belongs, punching hell monsters on Mars in the face and exploding stuff because that's just how you get things done. It is. This is a game with a simple agenda and a promise it never stops fulfilling. There are demons. You shoot the demons with guns. You pull and stomp the demons to pieces. You sometimes get to have a chainsaw and chop the demons into dog food. It's shameless, it's constant, and maybe it makes me a monstrous troglodyte for saying it, but it's fucking glorious, mate. And yet despite all the wanton carnage, there actually is a decent story running through the campaign, complete with optional lore that's well written and ties the new Doom to the 1990s canon in clever ways. More importantly, Doom's story happens around the protagonist without him giving a single solitary shit about it. The Doomslayer's agenda is to slay all the Doom, and even though he has no dialogue, his animations, all witnessed from a first-person perspective, display a ton of character, communicating both his intentions and his thoughts on the situation perfectly. Whether he's meatily pushing a monitor full of exposition away, or glancing at scenes of destruction to contrast another character's justification for opening a hell portal, the Doomslayer's emotions are worn on his chunky green sleeves. Video games are full of characters who spout endless expository dialogue and scream about their emotional states, yet this tight-lipped, faceless hero has more charisma than almost all of them put together. It's wonderful visual storytelling, and it's all subtly woven into one hell of an unsubtle game. By all accounts, Doom had a long and troubled path to store shelves, but none of it shows. It may have an old-fashioned sensibility, but it's a fresh and energetic romp of ripping and tearing, one that might get a little old at times toward the end, but never once dips in quality or refuses to skimp on the butchery. Add to that the Snap Map, which allows users to build and share their own custom Doom levels, and you've got a game worth keeping around and constantly delivering new ways to get one's murder on. You know, though, good murder. Because demons. Also, I gotta admit, I thought the multiplayer was good. Not particularly interesting or unique, but it was at the very least rock solid stuff, and it kept me entertained between the release of more robust multiplayer titles. No microtransactions too, none of that fee-to-pay bullshit. So there's that. By the way, if you don't know how these things work, it's 5 games of the year. I don't do an ultimate game of the year, I don't do different categories, I just pick the 5 games that I really enjoyed and think deserve some attention, and all deserve equal billing as a game of the year. With that in mind, it's time for our 5th, final, but not necessarily the best, just one of the 5 very best games of the year. It's time to give the final Jimquisition Award to Inside. Playdead had already made a name for itself with the critical darling Limbo, one of those games I personally feel comes as close to perfect as possible with regards to a developer setting out to do one thing, one genuinely good thing, and nailing it. Despite what must have been a ton of pressure to capture lightning in a bottle the second time, Inside did it all over again. Like its predecessor, Inside is a puzzle platformer about a little boy in a mysterious, imposing world that offers scant narrative, but a ton of implication that lets the player's imagination run wild. One of the most mentally affecting games of the year, the visuals alone make Inside a stark, standout title. Without words, Playdead's depressing dystopian landscape tells an engrossing story in an environment that never quite lets the audience feel at ease. Mechanically tight, Inside's environmental puzzles utilize a simple but versatile interface to turn singular ideas into multiple clever challenges. You can only push stuff, pull stuff, and climb stuff. Yet those interactions generate a bevy of intricate hindrances that are often just tricky enough to make you think, but not so obtuse you'll feel like giving up. Then there's the stuff going on with the weird homunculi people that I won't detail for fear of ruining it, but are integral to some fascinating puzzles. The adventure's spiced up with some chase and stealth sequences that punctuate the otherwise creepy and considered tone at just the right moments. Then there's the ending sequence that, again, I won't spoil. Let's just say it's one of the most empowering and unsettling gameplay sections you could hope to find this year. Limbo was no fluke. Playdead is doing incredible work, and Inside continues to demonstrate that this studio is something special. Also, this game, it's so very, very fleshy. So very fleshy. 5 games, 5 awards. Obviously there are certain games not on the list because they were fee to pay, which I do not give end of year honorifics to. But as far as honourable mentions go, I'm going to give one to Titanfall 2, which does have what we could call microtransactions, but not really a fee to pay mechanic. So it's a little odd one that I'm still mulling over in my head, but I'm going to give it an honourable mention. I'm also going to give an honourable mention to Enter the Gungeon, which was a wonderful roguelike shooter that is just a lot of fun to play. I'm a fan of those sorts of games with your permadeath, but your upgrades that unlock incrementally as you play. The Binding of Isaac, of course, huge fan of that. And Enter the Gungeon sort of has that spirit, with a lot of cool gun and bullet puns, and it's just a good laugh to play. So definitely check out those 2 games as my sort of recommendations that aren't quite what I would say typify 2016 in gaming for me. That about wraps it up for the Jimquisition Awards 2016. We've picked our 5 best games. Tune in next time for the top 10 shittiest games of 2016, where we're really going to have some fun. Until then, thank God for me.